I wrote Lego D&D music for an elf bard. Hi, welcome back to the channel if you've never been here before, and if you have been here before, welcome back. So today I'm talking a little bit more about my video game music pack for Lego D&D. Now, if you're not familiar with what a music pack is, essentially a music pack is a collection of music that is written for a video game but is offered to anyone. It's uploaded to websites like Unity or itch.io or Fab, so that if you are making your own video game and you want music that you don't have to buy fully custom music, because sometimes that can get expensive, you can just go to one of these websites and buy music that's already been made, download it for a pretty reasonable cost, and then you have a full soundtrack for your game that is already made, already ready to go right into your project. Now, my idea for what a video game music pack could be is something that reaches into kind of the fantasy D&D world, but is maybe a little bit more lighthearted, a little more fun. And that's why I was inspired by the Lego CMF D&D series. So CMF is a blind box series that Lego puts out that has different minifigures in the boxes, and you don't know which one you're going to get. They usually come out with packs of 12, but a few years ago they had a theme for Dungeons & Dragons specifically, and I thought I would take inspiration from each of the minifigures and write a whole pack of music based on each of the minifigures. This project is still a work in progress, and I'm just here to share with you my updates on how the project is going, with the next being the Elf Bard. So what I'm going to do first is show you what I wrote for this particular minifigure, and then talk about my inspirations for it, and then how I came about to create it. So let's go ahead and check out the track for the Lego Elf Bard. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the inspiration behind this track. So obviously I had this minifigure to go off of and kind of draw my ideas from, but you also have the concept of, in general, what a bard is in D&D. So you want to picture kind of a tavern type setting, something really casual, really chill, and something that is very lyrical, very melodic. But I also kind of wanted to go away from what I would call kind of the typical bard music, because this is an elf bard. I wanted something that kind of blends the typical bard music, but also an elf. So leaning more towards like the tavern, like, you know, picking on a stringed instrument kind of thing, but with a little bit of etherealness that comes with an elf. So right off the bat, I combined a lyre and a classical guitar to kind of have this ongoing riff. Just something consistent, something that I imagine someone would kind of be like leaning back in their chair with their stringed instrument and like plucking along, just letting everyone else kind of do their own thing. They're kind of jamming. The reason I combined the lyre and classical guitar is because while I liked the sound of each one individually, I think together they made this really good, complete sound. I'll let you hear both of them. So right there, I think is your typical kind of, D&D fantasy sound. While I thought the classical guitar had a little more weight to it. I thought that was a little bit more meaty, has some more protein in it. You really get something that has a very nice, full, but obviously fantasy sound. And so with the basic idea of someone kind of lounging back, playing their string instrument, I imagine what would happen if you got a group of these guys together and they're just jamming. What if they all have whatever they have available and they're just jamming out? So that's why I next went to the percussion. So you have some percussion here that is very easy to access. A bodhran is just this drum that's easy to carry. You kind of pick it up with your hand, kind of play it up like this. And it's providing a steady beat throughout this whole thing. Obviously, you have a tambourine, which I think is very typical for tavern D&D bard music, but also really easy to bring along and just kind of tap along with. The other two, the apple box and the pulley stick, are just kind of these wooden percussion instruments. You just kind of picture someone tapping along. Honestly, in my head, I was thinking of someone just kind of sitting at a table with a couple of sticks, whatever they happen to have around, and they're just kind of tapping along, just kind of creating this cool rhythm. One thing I did throw in here that I felt like made sense to me because of the way it sounded, not so much because of its function, was actually a jazz bass. So you have, one of those stand-up basses just kind of plucking along. This doesn't fit in with the vibe of, being able to carry along an instrument when you're on a big journey or whatever. But I just felt like it gave it a little bit of extra flavor that I really enjoyed. Check this out. So again, not strictly within the realm of what we're working with, but I feel like it's quirky enough to kind of stand out a little bit as something different and unique, but it blends in just so well that you probably don't even notice it. I also thought about what would be the easiest thing for someone to bring along with them. That would be their voice. I ended up with a female voice, honestly, because it's the only patch I could find that didn't have a vowel sound. I wanted someone just kind of humming along. So you have examples of someone just sitting there playing their instrument and someone just kind of hums a little something, And this is just our intro of what's going on. It's when we get the fiddle that we start to get a little more melodic. And I actually have 3 different fiddles going on here to kind of be my string section. And this is already turning out to be a relatively big band of guys playing along. This could have been just a random jam session, or this could be a planned thing, the live entertainment at whatever place they're at. The fiddle really fits into this vibe well, and I want you to check this out. Again, something short, something simple. When you get to this particular part, we have a little more harmony. So for the most part, they are doing just 2 lines in unison until you start to get this line in the main fiddle that, again, is reflecting, if you look, it's reflecting similar things that's going on with the other instruments, but it's moving around enough to kind of create some dissonance, some interest, some intrigue. And I also am kind of imagining that whoever has this fiddle is improvising. So while the other fiddles are just, they're playing their straight notes, just being kind of a background. Whoever it is that has this main fiddle has main character energy. They are doing whatever they want, kind of improvising on what they know it should sound like. Here we get the big melodic thing. Which I'll talk about that in just a second. But I also want to come down here and show off both the flute and the mandolin. Again, I wouldn't consider the mandolin to be a kind of strictly fantasy instrument. Might be kind of strange in the world of D&D, but again, I feel like this really fits in as just a little bit of an accent, a little bit something extra into the overall sound of this track. So the flute is gonna take the melody, and the mandolin is just kind of be there as a support. Now, where this gets fun is actually in the chord progression that I've been using is a little more chilled and a little bit, not really dark and not really somber, just not happy, if that makes sense. It's very chill. And when I think about a bard, especially, this elf bard, he looks happy. I imagine just kind of a happy-go-lucky, fun character in a game. And so I definitely wanted to have those moments of brightness, those moments of happiness. And so there's a really fun way that I transitioned in. So for the most part, what's going on with the chords here is that it's just an A minor going down to a G major and back. So it's just... I think this is pretty typical for fantasy music to kind of have this movement between the minor and the major that are right next to each other. And especially of this thing called the Dorian mode. Now, in music, there are things we call keys, like, a major, a minor, but another way of referring to them is a different kind of mode. And what that is again, a pre-described set of notes that is going to dictate the notes that you're going to use in your piece of music and also where the home key is. The best way to envision what Dorian mode is if you picture a C major scale. But instead of starting and ending on C, you just start on D. And what that does is that it's a minor scale, but it raises the sixth note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Instead of 6 being here, it's here. Very medieval sounding, very fantasy sounding. And so I really wanted to play into that to bring in this brightness. So like I said, it's an A minor going to a G major. So when it transitions to a different, happier note, we're going to play into that raised sixth note, which in this case would be an F sharp. And we're going to play a D major going to a C major. Check this out. A minor, G major, C major, C major. And that same fiddle line is able to work really well. And the last thing I bring in is just this Irish whistle. Again, someone kind of improvising over all of this stuff, but now it's brighter, it's happier. So we want an instrument that is very bright and peppy and nice. So we have an Irish whistle coming in, improvising its own little melody. what I really like about the chord progression of this is that when you have that D major, and then it kind of goes up to the E minor, it can go back to the A minor really simply. But because the D major is relatively close to, in relationship to the A minor, they have a very strong resolution. Going from one to the other sounds very natural and smooth, where you might not even notice that the chord progression really changed. If you look at what the riff is doing in the minor section, it's really just playing the arpeggio in a fun rhythm. And when you switch that up, it's only a couple of notes that you have to change to make it into that major. Literally, just a couple of notes that make the difference, with those chord notes of the A and the G still being the foundation of the riff. That's why it's able to transition so smoothly. But I'd like to know what you think. Do you think I nailed the vibe of the Elf Bard, or do you think I just completely missed? Let me know in the comments. But that's all I have for now. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoy watching videos about LEGO video game music, I put out something every single week, either my own compositions, or I talk about some of the music that's been created for the LEGO video games we know and love. If you enjoy any of that, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you see more of that kind of content, and hit the little bell so you're notified whenever I put out a new video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.